By late 1943, the Second World War had entered a phase where Allied victory appeared increasingly possible, but far from guaranteed. Germany continued to occupy much of continental Europe, while large-scale combat persisted across the Eastern Front. The Western Allies had achieved success in North Africa and southern Italy, yet no direct invasion of German-occupied Western Europe had occurred. The United States, the United Kingdom, and the Soviet Union shared a common enemy, but not identical goals. Their ability to coordinate military operations across multiple theaters would determine whether pressure on Germany could be sustained and synchronized. Joseph Stalin had repeatedly requested a face-to-face meeting to confirm Allied intentions, particularly regarding the long-promised Second Front in Western Europe. From November 28 to December 1, 1943, the leaders of the three major Allied powers met in Tehran, Iran. This meeting became the first conference attended in person by Franklin D. Roosevelt, Winston Churchill, and Joseph Stalin. This documentary examines the Tehran Conference as a planning and coordination event rather than a symbolic gathering. It focuses on documented agreements, recorded discussions, and subsequent military outcomes. Where historians differ in interpretation, those perspectives are clearly labeled. The emphasis remains on verifiable decisions and their operational consequences. By the autumn of 1943, the strategic situation had evolved significantly since the Axis high point of 1941-1942. German forces had been defeated at Stalingrad and were retreating across large sections of the Eastern Front. In July 1943, the German offensive at Kursk failed, after which Soviet forces began sustained counteroffensives. In the Mediterranean, Allied forces landed in Sicily in July 1943 and on mainland Italy in September. Italy surrendered shortly thereafter, though German forces continued fighting in the peninsula. Despite these advances, Allied leaders recognized that Italy alone could not deliver a decisive blow against Germany. Documented fact, Soviet forces were bearing the majority of German ground forces. According to German army records, approximately two-thirds of German divisions were deployed on the Eastern Front in 1943. Joseph Stalin continued to press for a major Allied invasion of Western Europe to reduce pressure on Soviet forces. British and American leaders agreed in principle but differed on timing and location. The United States favored a direct cross-channel invasion of France. British leadership expressed concerns about readiness, logistics, and potential casualties, advocating continued operations in the Mediterranean. Historian interpretation. Many historians argue that by late 1943, American industrial output and troop availability made a cross-channel invasion increasingly feasible, while British caution reflected experiences from earlier conflicts. The Tehran Conference was convened to resolve these strategic differences and establish a Vevia coordinated plan for 1944. The selection of Tehran as the conference site reflected logistical and security concerns. Iran, occupied jointly by British and Soviet forces since 1941, offered relative security. Documented fact: the conference took place at the Soviet embassy in Tehran, where Stalin resided throughout the meeting. Security arrangements were extensive. Allied intelligence services were aware of potential German assassination plots, although the scale and feasibility of these plans remain debated among historians. German intelligence sources, including Abwehr and Sicherheitsdienst records, indicate that German leadership was aware of a high-level Allied meeting but lacked precise details regarding timing and security. Historian interpretation. Some historians argue that the threat of assassination was exaggerated post-war, while others maintain that German intelligence efforts were active but ineffective. The location allowed Stalin to participate fully while minimizing risk. Roosevelt and Churchill accepted the arrangement to ensure Stalin's attendance. The three leaders arrived with distinct objectives. Franklin D. Roosevelt sought to maintain coalition unity and secure Soviet cooperation in both the European and Pacific theaters. Winston Churchill aimed to preserve British strategic influence and avoid commitments he believed premature. Joseph Stalin sought firm guarantees of a second front. Documented fact. Official conference minutes and diplomatic cables show that Roosevelt frequently acted as a mediator between Churchill and Stalin. Stalin's negotiating position was strengthened by Soviet battlefield success. Soviet forces had regained initiative, and Stalin was able to argue from a position of demonstrated military contribution. Churchill expressed concerns regarding the risks of Operation Overlord, but did not reject it outright. Roosevelt supported the operation and emphasized American readiness. Historian interpretation. Some historians suggest Roosevelt used personal diplomacy to build trust with Stalin, while others argue that strategic necessity limited available alternatives. Despite ideological differences, the leaders maintained a practical tone focused on military coordination. The most significant outcome of the Tehran Conference was the formal commitment to launch Operation Overlord, the Allied invasion of Western Europe, in the spring of 1944. Documented fact. Conference records confirm agreement on a target date of May 1944, later adjusted to June 6, 1944, due to logistical considerations. The conference also included agreement that Soviet forces would launch major offensives to coincide with Overlord. This coordination aimed to prevent German redeployment of forces between fronts. Plans for a secondary landing in southern France, initially called Operation Anvil, later Dragoon, were also discussed. Historian interpretation. Many historians view Tehran as the moment when Allied strategy became fully synchronized across theaters. The agreements were recorded in official memoranda and confirmed through subsequent military planning documents. German intelligence agencies were aware that Allied leaders were meeting, but lacked reliable information about specific agreements. Documented fact: German intelligence reports referenced high-level Allied coordination but did not identify Tehran as the meeting site with certainty. The Lucy spy ring, operating in Switzerland, transmitted information regarding Allied discussions to German intelligence. However, the reliability and interpretation of these reports varied. Historian interpretation: some historians argue that German leadership underestimated the likelihood of a cross-channel invasion despite intelligence warnings. The agreements reached in Tehran were implemented in 1944. On June 6th, Allied forces landed in Normandy as part of Operation Overlord. On June 22nd, the Soviet Union launched Operation Bagration. Documented fact: Operation Bagration resulted in the destruction of German Army Group Center, with losses exceeding 300,000 personnel, according to German records. The near-simultaneous offensives prevented Germany from shifting reserves effectively. Historian interpretation: historians generally agree that the coordination agreed at Tehran played a role in overwhelming German defensive capacity. In addition to military matters, the Tehran Conference addressed post-war issues, including the occupation of Germany. Documented fact: preliminary discussions outlined zones of occupation, later formalized at subsequent conferences. Poland's future borders were discussed, though no final decisions were made. Historian interpretation: some historians argue that early post-war planning reflected emerging tensions, while others emphasize continued cooperation. The Tehran Conference marked a critical stage in Allied coordination during the Second World War. It transformed broad commitments into concrete, synchronized military plans. Archival records demonstrate that decisions made in Tehran directly influenced operations in 1944. The alignment of Western and Soviet offensives limited German strategic options and accelerated the collapse of German military power. While later conferences refined and expanded these plans, Tehran established the foundation for coordinated coalition warfare. Its significance lies not in symbolism, but in documented agreements and measurable outcomes. The conference illustrates how strategic coordination among diverse allies can shape the course of large-scale conflict. Its legacy is recorded in operational orders, diplomatic cables, and battlefield results rather than rhetoric.